Hello there, my name's Roger and I'm a chef with UK Harvest Food Rescue and Education Charity, and today we're making a 5-a-day veggie pie. So this recipe is inspired by our new partners at Pollen and Grace, who create 100% natural food to go and are supporting our educational program. Right, so what ingredients are we going to need for this vegan pie? And we are making a vegan pie today. So we're going to need 3/4 of a butternut squash. We're going to need 1 whole leek. We're going to need about 200 grams of Oatly cream or creme fraiche. We're going to need a whole onion. We're going to need about 130 grams of garden peas, half a bunch of chives, 2 to 3 tablespoonfuls of a vegan cream cheese. We're going to need about a small punnet of chestnut mushrooms, but they can be any mushrooms. We're going to need a whole cauliflower. We're going to need some olive oil, some salt and pepper. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is prepare my butternut squash. So I'm simply just going to sort of take one end off and I'm just going to cut it through this kind of area. So simply just going to peel this off. I should peel all of this. And interestingly, if you wanted to, you could use this unpeeled. There's no harm in that, but I just prefer it this way. So you want to peel it all, and then we're going to cut this into about 2cm dice. Right, so I'm just finishing off my butternut squash, as I said, into about a 2cm dice, which is a little bit chunky, but not overly. So quickly get through that. Be careful with your fingers behind the blade all the time. That's going straight onto my baking tray. Now I'm just going to quickly prep my onion. It's already been peeled. I've still got the root on, so I'm just going to cut it in half. I'm just going to cut a little bit of that root out, not all of it, but just a little bit. Same on that side, because we don't want the root in the cooking. And I'm just going to cut this into some wedges. Let's say 4 each side. Put that on our baking tray. Tiny little whiz over with some lovely olive oil, just a tiny bit. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and then we're going to pop that into our oven at about 180 degrees. And it's going to take 30 to 40 minutes, but we're just going to sort of turn it occasionally every 15 minutes or so. I'm just going to pop that in the oven right now. Right, so our next part of the process is actually making the mash. So traditionally, obviously, potatoes used as a topping, but according to our friends at Pollen and Grace, this is an absolute game changer. So we're using a beautiful sort of cauliflower, which we're going to cook down, and we're going to then make a mash out of the florets. So let's prepare the florets. So we just gently kind of whiz round, take all the outer leaves off, and then we want to sort of break this down into florets. So just very simply cut through, and then just very gently, as you can see all the little stems and they're falling away. We just whiz round and they all slowly fall off. We're going to pop that into boiling water. We're going to bring up to the boil, and we're going to cook those for about 8-10 minutes until they're beautifully tender. Right, so I'm just about to get going with my pie filling. So I'm going to start with my leek, and I've already split my leek right the way through and given it a really good kind of washing out, just to knock out any loose bits of clinging soil. So after that's washed, I'm just carefully just going to cut that into sort of nice little chunky sections, because you've got to imagine this being sort of sauteed down a little bit, just cooked down a little bit, and you don't want to break it up too much. So that's going straight onto my plate. Moving straight onto my mushrooms now. I've given them a good wash just to sort of, again, knock off any kind of loose dirt particles. So I'm just very simply going to cut all these in quarter. You don't need to peel them, you don't need to stalk them. Why lose all that goodness? Right, so for the chives, I'm just going to shred them up with the knife. Easily done. Not into minute particles, but just into nice little pieces. You can do this with scissors if you prefer. Right, so my cauliflower's had a good 10 minutes cooking now, so I'm going to remove it from the heat and drain it. And this should be lovely and tender now. That's looking good. And very simply now I can return that cauliflower back to my pan once the water's drained off. And if you just put it back on the stove for a couple of minutes on a really, really low heat, as you can see, that will just wick off any excess kind of water and really help with your mash later on. Right, so I'm pressing on with my filling now. I've got my large pot, got a drop of olive oil going in, not too much again, you want it to stay healthy. So my leeks are going straight in, there's that lovely sizzle sound straight away. And I need to cook my leeks again for a good couple of minutes until they go nice and glassy, and then in with my mushrooms. Right, so that's my leeks cooked. They're nice and tender, a little bit glassy looking. So my mushrooms follow straight in now, and I'm going to cook those for a good couple of minutes. Right, so while my leeks and mushrooms are cooking away, I'm going to check on my butternut squash and onions. So, whoa, they look absolutely gorgeous. A little bit of colour, not too much, that's perfect. So I'm just going to reserve that to one side while, as I said, I'm cooking my mushrooms and leeks. Right, so that's my mushrooms and leeks, pretty well done. As you can see, most of the liquid is actually dispersed now, evaporated off, so I'm going in with my other ingredients. So first of all, my peas are going in. Give those a little stir. I'm actually going to turn the heat off at this point, it doesn't need to be on. My chopped chives, lovely, lovely, that'll add a lovely little bit of crunch and a lovely bit of onioniness. This is my Oatly cream, this is going straight away in, about 200 ml of this all going in, lovely. And then my roasted butternut squash and onion, so I'm just carefully picking it up with a paper, and as you can see, just tipping that in. Lovely, lovely. I'm going to give that a nice little stir through, just to make sure it's all beautifully coated. And at this point, I'm just going to check it one more time for seasoning, because we did salt our butternut squash and onion earlier on. Yeah, just a little bit more. A little bit more pepper. A little bit more salt. Give that one more quick stir, and then we're going to put that into our pie dish. Right, so this is my pie mix going in, and we now need to just crack on with the mash. Right, so I'm pushing on with my topping now. I've got my cauliflower that I've cooked beautifully tender, and that's still nice and warm, which is very good if you're going to start blitzing it. So that's going straight into the machine. And then, very quickly going to add in my cream cheese, which is a vegan cream cheese. Lovely. A lovely grind of salt and pepper. Lid on, and away we go. Right, so that's my mix done to a beautiful puree, as you'll see now. So take the blade out, just give it a little tap on the side, knock off most of that, and then that is going straight on top of my mix. just very carefully get it all in there. I'm just going to spread that evenly around. You can see how mash-like that looks, but that is a beautiful puree. Just very carefully put it to the edge, not smearing up the sides, nice and decoratively. And voila! This is as good as that. And that goes straight in the oven now for about 30-40 minutes on about 180 degrees. Right, so it's been about 40-45 minutes now. So I'm just gonna bring it out. Oh, look at that, it's looking absolutely cracking. That cauliflower topping has got a lovely golden brown. So I'm just gonna leave that now for a few minutes just to sort of cool down before serving. Right, so there we are, our lovely 5-a-day veggie pie, inspired by a collaboration with Pollen and Grace. So it just remains now for me to try some of this. So lovely, take a nice big corner out of there. Look at that. Right, so there we have it, our wonderful 5-a-day veggie pie, inspired by a collaboration with Pollen and Grace. And should you be wanting to sort of see more wonderful recipes, check out pollenandgrace.com or ukharvest.org.uk. Just remains for me to try some of this exceptional pie now. So here we go, going straight in. That is so good. And that pureed cauliflower mash is just an absolute winner. Please go away and try this. It's wonderful.